You're listening to the ESO Network, your station for all things geek.
Welcome to My OB Defend Your Childhood, the podcast where every week we put a little bit of your past on trial. Wait, you don't know who we are? Well, fine. First, we take a movie that you like. You know the ones. The ones the buses always had on field trips.
We got a real jam going down. Welcome to the Space Jam.
The afternoon animated show tie-in.
Or rewrite history. DuckTales.
Or the ones your parents didn't want you to see but you watched at a sleepover. So that's the game. The movies are 10 years old and the defendant hasn't seen them in 5. Then we're
here to talk about The Sandlot. When I was a kid, I wasn't allowed to play with the other children, so this is how I learned human interaction.
Ask them what they think.
Obviously, I remembered your wigs, because as soon as my parents found out that I was deathly afraid of parasites, they were like, let's show her Wrath of Khan.
So, in the end, does your past hold up? Can you defend your childhood? Tune in every Thursday to find out.
Hello and welcome to the Monster Sci-Fi Show podcast. I am your host, the Monster, back to give you some sci-fi news for my long absence of 2 weeks. So I wanted to talk about a couple my big 3 topics in a moment, as well as do 7, count 'em, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 season reviews or season finale reviews of The Walking Dead, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., we have Legends of Tomorrow, Flash, Arrow, and there was something else I forgot because I can't count. Alright, enough of that. So, like I said, the last time I did the podcast was almost 2 weeks ago, and I had to take my son on a trip to St. Augustine, which I had a great time considering how long the trip was. Everyone came back alive. That's all I can hope for. But after I came back, I did the Comic-Con event at my library. So having come for that long trip and then started to do origami the next day, because I needed to kind of warm up, and from like 10:30 till 12 I was doing all these different origami set up ahead of time, and then from 12 to about 3:30 it was non-stop with the amount of people that came to my table to do origami. So I was very happy to have that, but my god, I was going brain dead doing some of the folding process because people were asking, can you do this? So I'm like, okay, let's do the heart, and then wait, we're making something else, let's go with what I'm doing right now. But it was very fun. I just wish I had someone else that could tap so I can go to the bathroom more than once or eat. But man, it was good to have that kind of response, at least from my table, as well as everyone else that was at the event. I'm sure they had a good time for that. So the other thing I kind of alluded to in the the X-Men Apocalypse movie review I did with Gene was that in those 2 weeks I've been taking a break and basically not watching as much as I've been in the past, or just watching older stuff that I haven't watched in a long time. I talked about The Deep. I've been watching a couple of the Halo movies that are on Netflix, which I haven't seen before, but the Forward Until Dawn was fantastic. I actually enjoyed that a lot. And then I've been rewatching Doctor Who Season 8, and I'm almost near the end. So it's been one of those times in which that's what I kind of needed to feel kind of recharged. Hence why I did almost 3 podcasts in just a few days. Because I've been kind of itching to go back to what I'm doing, is talking to you about stuff I love. So I'm going to continue doing that for, I guess, for the most part, for the rest of the summer, and just kind of find other things to find some creative angles or things like that. The Hustler I watch, and we talked about that a while ago on Netflix. Black and white movie, Jackie Gleason, Paul Newman, and if I saw this, I don't remember it that well. So I rewatched it again, or watched it the first time, depending on my head. And it was great. I really enjoyed his performance. But there was this one dark scene that is really not said as to really what happened to him. Because what happened is that he was hustling someone, and the people in the pool hall didn't like that. So they took him to the back into the men's room. And in this kind of like frosted glass, you hear him screaming, and his face gets pushed into the glass. But that seemed to be a little bit more extreme than what he said later on. It was like they broke his thumbs. So something did happen to him, and it was never said. And that blew me away. So things like that is what I need to get back into, because as much as I love the summer movies, not everything is going to be as engaging as true classic movies like that. So, all right. So the big three things I'm going to be talking about. We have news about Thor 3, and we also are going to be talking about Star Trek Beyond, the new Star Trek movie, which is number 3 in the JJ universe. And we also have news that we have a Flash director, which had dropped out due to Warner Brothers not feeling confident in this first time a director's ability to do a big movie like this. But again, I'll get to that in a moment. So let's get back into Thor 3. As I talked about, I really hated Thor 2. And the romance between Thor and Jane was not there. It was just basically kind of phoned in, very forced. Story-wise, didn't care much for it. And great, we got to see, was it Malik or whatever that dark Keebler elf magic Doctor Who guy was. I didn't care, because the problem lies is that if you don't know who this person is, you're going to have to set up for the audience what that villain is and what they're going to be doing. And it's kind of hard to kind of get behind. It's not like Loki, who really was prominent in the very beginning of Phase 1 and of course into the Avengers movie, that he's about. This is a character you know. So to bring in someone new, and then of course later on gets killed off, who cares? I really couldn't care less about these characters. So now that I'm hearing that there's going to be some elements of Planet Hulk, because Mark Ruffalo is going to be in the Hulk in the Thor 3 movie. Now, how he gets there, who knows? Now, if you follow the comics of Planet Hulk, the Illuminati had discussed, and this is a group of the supers among superheroes, who decided that Hulk was better served being outside of this planet, this universe, whatever, so they launched him out into space. Something happened along the way in which he gets knocked off course, and he lands on his planet, in which it becomes kind of like a gladiator style arena in which he becomes this new hero on Planet Hulk. And later on, he comes back to Earth and really wreaks havoc on everything, because he was getting revenge on everybody. So no one could stand in his way. So I don't think that aspect is going to be playing out in Thor 3, but I think at least the gladiator part, or at least how he gets out into space, is going to be instrumental to do that. So I'm interested only because if this helps make Thor 3 better, then I'm all for it. Thor is not an easy character that Gene and I talked about, but the first movie captured a perfect sense of who this person is because of the whole magic element, and like he said in that quick scene on where he lives, magic and science are one and the same. So, but again, we're not dealing with this in our world, but this is going to be primarily on his world or other worlds that we're going to be seeing this. So we'll see what happens, and I really want Thor to be great again, because again, hard character to portray, but if they have to introduce this to make Hulk and Thor work, fine. Fine. Just do it. All right. So let's move on to Star Trek Beyond. There's a new second trailer that came out, which is so much better. Yes, and it's more traditional without having the Beastie Boys song blaring in the background. I felt much better about this movie because of the trailer, and then also something else that happened. If we remember a while back, I talked about the Axanar fan film from Star Trek that fans were putting together, and CBS and Paramount were really going after them for copyright infringement, which was really a crock because there are other companies or other organizations doing the exact same thing, but this group was getting, lawsuit and being pointed at specifically for what they were doing. So Justin Lin and J.J. Abrams talked about how, in essence, this is not how you're going to support Star Trek in the future if you attack your fans like this. They're the reasons why this franchise has remained significant in everyone's life, because of people wanting to make these kind of films. So, with that kind of clout, both JJ and Justin Lin, I'm really happy for now to see Star Trek Beyond, just because of what has happened with the Axanar situation, plus the trailer. Now, I'm still not like 100% like this is going to be the best Star Trek movie ever, but because of what they've done, now I'm going to give you at least, I'll walk in not as reserved, with more of an open mind, and not expect, hopefully, another occurrence of Into Darkness, where I'm being lied to and such. So, we'll see what happens, but we're not going to see that until sometime July 22nd, if I believe that's correct. But, okay, let's just go forward. We still have a Star Trek series that's going to be supposedly being filmed come the fall. No one knows anything other than there's a logo, and that's it. So, we'll have more Star Trek news in the coming months about that. Alright, so the last one is going to be the Flash movie. Now, if you watch Batman vs. Superman, we saw briefly Ezra Miller as the Flash. In the future, coming back in the past, talking to Bruce Wayne about Lois Lane and so forth. So, the solo movie that we're going to get is by a director which I've never heard from until just now when doing this research. His name is Rick, and I'm going to mispronounce his last name, Famu Yiwa. There's a movie called Dope that is on Netflix. You can watch right now. I watched the first, say, couple of minutes. Right off the beginning, I got his sense of how he is going to be working the Flash. It is very quick with his wit, very funny, and I was just on board. It feels very fresh as far as storytelling, watching Dope. So if he puts that kind of energy into the Flash, I'm actually going to be kind of okay with this. Because if Flash is going to be this kind of teenager-ish, older, I want him to kind of have that kind of fun play that I saw in the beginning of Dope. And then what will have to happen after the Justice League movie will be hopefully something that will make up for not having Grant in the movie, because everyone loves him as the Flash right now. So if this makes up for that, if this makes up for the mess, I hate to say it's a mess, but the false start that Batman vs. Superman had to give DC that launch, then by all means, let's just make this happen the right way. And I'm really confident that this is what's going to happen. So the director that was before this was Seth Grahame-Smith, who has written Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter, which I liked the movie a lot. He wrote the screenplay from Chris and Philip Lord, the brothers who did the Lego movie. So basically, they did a treatment, he wrote the script, and he was going to then direct it. But Warner Brothers were kind of feeling iffy about his directing skills, considering this is, I think, his first major one, and they were not really getting enough feelings that this guy can do it. So that's what we have for the pick 3. So let's begin the 7 episodes or 7 series I'm going to do quick reviews on. Starting off with The Walking Dead Season 6. Now, even though this has happened a while ago, I try to watch them all in a binge weekend or so. And especially when there's like a break in the middle, I really kind of hold off on watching any of the episodes until everything has been released. So let's start off with the whole beginning with that first half of the season where you have the zombie horde coming to Alexandria, and how each episode after that took place within the exact same time frame, but from a different character's point of view and a different location with the exact same action going on. That's fantastic. I was really on board with what they were presenting and how they were going to basically tell this story, a huge story that only really is taking place within a matter of hours, but very effective. The other, I guess, gripe but people had was Glenn was seen to have been killed, but in reality he had... Oh, let me start off with this. I didn't say this, but spoilers. Everything from this point on is going to be nothing but spoilers, so I'm sorry if he didn't realize that Glenn was almost killed. But yeah, that's what's going to happen from now on. So Glenn is running away from a horde of zombies, and the guy he's traveling with falls down or kills himself, taking Glenn down, and then we see Glenn screaming because we think he's getting torn to shreds. In reality, it's him, the other guy, being torn to shreds, and he's just underneath all that mess. So for a while, nothing kept saying, is he dead? Is he alive? But later on, he did come back. So after that, we get Daryl, Abraham, and Sasha, who, again, part of the storyline, they're leading the horde away, and they later on encounter a group that belongs to Negan. And it seems as if, we've been down this road before, and basically Daryl takes care of them in a big way and just blows the hell out of that group. So we're thinking, okay, we're fine. And later on, we encounter another guy who leads our group to the Hill, which is another settlement, who has also been dealing with Negan. But they've had an arrangement, and basically they give up 50% of everything they have as far as food and weaponry and all that fun stuff. So, when did this become a Bug's Life? Because this is exactly what it is, because Rick and his crew is like, oh, you know what? We'll take care of this. In turn, you got to help us. So, for the most part, everyone, it's not necessarily cocky, but they've reached a level of mentality with their survival skills, with saving Alexandria and dealing with the governor. So I'm like, Negan, not a problem, not an issue. And for the most part, it is not. Until the very end. And this is where I really want to talk about. Negan comes out and is such a dominating, very scary character because of that damn bat. So when he finally releases the fury of that bat, and it's from the point of view of whoever this person is, and he says that, that's that line, it's like, look at you taking it like a champ. And then, bam, keeps on going, on and on and on. And the camera fades to black, but you could still hear the pounding of the bat. just going on and on. I know people lost their minds because they didn't know who was killed, but that's the whole point of a cliffhanger, is to leave you wanting more. And it did that effectively, and I thought that was the most disgusting thing that you've never seen, because you didn't see anything gory other than the blood coming trailing down the screen from the point of view of whoever that person was. So people think, well, if they're going to follow with the comics, then it's supposed to be Glenn. My take is going to be, if you have a big soldier or the best soldier in the group, that's who you want to take out. So I figured it has to be Abraham. Abraham is the best they got. I'm betting money on him rather than Glenn. Although that line, "Look at you taking it like a champ," could be someone else that's not as strong. But again, I'm not going to say who I think it is. I'm just wanting it to be. I'm thinking, not that I want it to be, but I'm thinking it's probably Abraham. All right. So the other thing that was worrisome was that Carol, who has the most tremendous character arc in from season 1 till now, in which she is just the best and badass character next to, I would say, Michonne, but actually Carol really edges out because she's a lot more developed than everyone else. But she starts to have this kind of weird breakdown in her psyche, which I thought, well, at times she was being captured, and I think she was just playing the weak female card, but then there are incidents in which it really is taking a toll on her. So she's having this kind of crisis of consciousness, and she is like leaving everything behind. So we'll see whatever happens with that. But my God, what a way to end a season. I'm very happy, and I thought the governor was great in the comics. Negan, which I haven't read in the comics yet, I'm but 2 or 3 comics away from that, really blew me away. And wow, what an ending. All right, the other one, that's the one I was going to forget. Daredevil season 2. I finally got to watch that, and again, watched a couple episodes here and there. Wasn't really in the mood to kind of rush through that. But when I got back from my trip from St. Augustine, that's when it got really interesting. I loved the Punisher. Elektra was awesome. The only complaint... Oh, let me go back one step further. The Fisk shows up. He does play a critical role in season 2. But as you're bringing all these different elements from season 1 to season 2 and moving the story forward, the ending with Nobu just really makes no sense, or at least it's not clear what the whole mission of the hand and whatever that thing was that was dug up from below Manhattan, and why was the blood being drained from all these people, and then Elektra dies, and then they put her in there, and like, so there was nothing in that chamber egg thing in the first place. So I really wanted to like Daredevil 2 a lot more, but that like 2 episodes towards the end just lost it, and I was just really frustrated at how this all came through, because everything was leading up to the right way. I was expecting a big payoff, and I got dissatisfied. So the only thing I will say, I still love Foggy. He's so great, and I love Karen, and their relationship, the 3 of them with Matt being no longer together, it was heartbreaking. But man, the cast itself is so damn good, but man, that ending really, it deserves better than what we got. That's all I gotta say about that. Let's move on to Gotham season 2. This one is going to be broken up into 2. We have the rise of the villains, and then we get the wrath of the villains. So all season 1 was corruption everywhere and mobsters really ruling that town. Season 2, we get a lot more characters, which are the monsters and the freaks that really are an additional layer to the mobsters and the corruption that goes on in Gotham. So it's really good how it all is playing out. The one thing I really hate to have seen gone was Jerome. Jerome from season 1 had that weird moment in which he talks about killing his mother and has that devilish Joker grin. And I'm like, is that going to be the Joker? And in season 2, he's part of a group called the Maniacs with an X. Because, that's serious when you misspell words with an X. But he gets killed off by Galavan, which was always part of his plan. That he was the savior of the town, and that he was going to be mayor. Of course, that happened. But along the way, other characters had to kind of take their own courses, like Nigma and Kringle getting together, but Nigma wind up killing her, committing that murder, and then burying the body, and basically he's being pushed over the edge to become the Riddler later on. Wrath of the Villains, we get Mr. Freeze, which was, I thought, a little campy without the beginnings of the suit, but then that's the origin story that we get, and how he dies, but is brought back thanks to Professor Hugo Strange, which is played by B.D. Wong, and I think he's done a fantastic job for this whole season. I cannot get enough of Hugo Strange. So with that, the only thing that I was really kind of like, really, we're going to do this. Barbara gets, I guess, James back in a church with Tompkins standing by, and she's in a wedding dress. So she was planning to marry him. I'm like, no, don't do this. This is the lamest thing ever that I've ever seen. Whatever the case is, it was done with, and she fell down and was in a coma for a while, and then she's back again. But I'm like, yeah, I can do without that character altogether. It's not working for me, even at the end, but whatever. But what I do like, in the process, Cobblepot in the season gets to meet his real biological father, who turns out to be Paul Reubens, who, if you remember Paul, he is Pee Wee Herman. And, side note, he was actually at Cobblepot's father in Batman Returns by Tim Burton, the second movie with Michael Keaton. So he got to play twice the same character, more or less. And another thing that I liked for the season was how Nigma and Cobblepot, the Penguin, got together and were kind of like roommates. And it was kind of weird at first. I thought it was going to be some kind of little misery scenario playing out, but it was kind of a weird relationship between the two of them, like arguing on the phone to get groceries and things like that. But it's very enjoyable to see those two together. So from there, the other thing that I want to talk about was that Galavan was killed off, but was brought back as Azrael. And Azrael is part of the Order of Saint Dumas, which in the Nightfall comics, he was Jean-Paul Valley, who took over the role of Batman when Bane broke Batman's back. And because of this programming that was instilled in Jean-Paul, it was taking over every sense of who he was as a person, and couldn't stop the vengeance factor of really going out and killing people and really hurting people. So I'm sorry that didn't really happen, but Galavan did become Azrael. It wasn't the exact same Azrael, but okay, we're fine on that. The other big thing that I was also happy about was that Hugo Strange had to answer to a higher authority, not the Hebrew national higher authority, but the Court of Owls made its appearance towards the end of season 2, and I'm like, that's perfect. I am so happy about that. Talk about tying in current storylines into a TV series and laying down the groundwork for something that will happen later on. So I was very, very happy with the Court of Owls to see that happen. And the one thing that I could have done without was Fish Mooney. I did not want to see Fish Mooney again. I was happy that she was killed off. I liked her a lot. Don't get me wrong. I love Fish Mooney the first season. And Jada Pinkett, sexy as hell, was perfect for that role. And she played it to nth degree. But when her end came at the end, okay, that's it. Let's move on. But to bring her back from the dead, and now she has these special powers, which I refer to as the power of persuasion. So really, you touch someone and you are able to tell them to do whatever you want them to do. Okay, that's great, but it did nothing for me. To me, it was just becoming cumbersome with an already loaded storylines and cast. You just really did not need to bring her back. In any case, part of the ending was that Arkham Asylum was going to be blown up, and Hugo Strange was going to bust all the freaks and monsters that he created. Of course, that didn't happen. So Fish Mooney took over the role and drove away, and then ultimately crashed the bus, which everyone who was on there pretty much escaped into the night. And we saw various shapes of certain people that you kind of like, kind of looks like maybe Bane or some other creature, but you weren't really sure. But the only clear shot we got was a doppelganger of Bruce, young Bruce Wayne, but with longer hair. So that is something that I'm very curious to see what happens for season 3. So all in all, very happy the way things turned out. The only thing I wish I could have had more of was more of the relationship between Gordon and Bullock. There was this one great moment in which they're arguing about Victor Freeze's last name because it's spelled F-R-I-E-S, and Gordon was saying it's Freeze, and then Bullock was saying it's pronounced Fries, and they got like someone else to authenticate that, and it was indeed Fries, and Bullock had like a one-up on Gordon, which is a rare time that Bullock really ones-up him, but it was just so damn funny, and I love their chemistry together. So again, I wish there was more of that throughout the season, but hopefully season 3 will get those two together again. Alright, so moving on to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 3. I already talked about this a little bit on the Civil War episode, in which I wanted to see how Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was going to be connected to Civil War. And again, I'm not going to rehash that. I just thought it was just not the kind of thing that I would want to have in an episode. If this whole universe is all tied in, it didn't work for me. And because, again, there are no Inhumans being slated for in the future to be an actual feature film, then there's no point to lay the groundwork to do Inhumans any further. So, with that said, a couple of good things, namely that I liked the idea of the Secret Warriors, which is based on the comics, that S.H.I.E.L.D. actually has their own group of superheroes that are powered people, which they call them, not metas, but they're enhanced. No, whatever it is. They had their own people that, because from season 1, the fish that ingested whatever that chemical was, and then people ate the fish into the fish oil, and then that became the genesis of these various powers that you saw all over the world. So you had to give some reason for why these people have powers. Fine, you go with it. But then they started recruiting these people to become part of the Secret Warriors. Okay. The other thing that it was still a struggle to get through is, giving Grant Ward, who in the beginning of season 1 was a good guy, but with the fallout of S.H.I.E.L.D., he was a Hydra agent all this time, and then he became kind of like their focused bad guy for the past couple of seasons. And, he's looking to restart Hydra all by himself, or getting a group together, and that doesn't really work out enough. to the point that it was very successful. Fitz is stuck in another world because of the monolith that swallowed her in the beginning, or at the end of season 2, and then the beginning of season 3 we see her story, which for the most part was very interesting, and I was wanting to see how it would pay off. And we do get a sense of some kind of closure between Coulson and Grant Ward, because they were on a mission to get her back, or to get whatever it was that's Hydra. And basically Grant is killed by Coulson, and he uses that prosthetic hand to kind of really put an end and crush his chest, and that's it. But Grant is resurrected and is no longer Grant, but is this creature called Hive, which is sort of Hydra-ish, as we see later into the season finale, which you led up to that point, and Coulson and Hive were having this conversation, and I was wondering where this was going, and basically Coulson was using himself as a diversion by being a hologram and delaying Hive from knowing what the plan was going on. So when Hive realized that it was a hologram, Coulson was talking about, by the way, I've always wanted to do this, and he reaches, like he bends over and reaches down like he's putting something in, and it's like, he does the Princess Leia moment from Star Wars, hope you all can be, you're my only hope. I laughed out loud. I busted a gut because it was unexpected. I'm like, that's what we should have had more of, those kind of moments. Those are things that we loved about Coulson were pretty much written out or not even put into the damn stories. That one moment really gave me hope that maybe one day the Coulson that we've always loved is going to be the Coulson we're going to get, making those little one-liners throughout the series. But honestly, it's heartbreaking that you get to this point. I'm like, we're on to season 4, and I don't know what the this is going to be for this series, because there's no tie-in for anything. It's kind of lost, because as the end of the episode kills off Hive and another member of S.H.I.E.L.D. out in space, it jumps forward 6 months, in which Daisy is now a renegade, looking very hot, by the way. But she's on the lam, so Coulson's going after her, and she escapes. But it seems as if, and it implies that he's no longer in charge of S.H.I.E.L.D., or S.H.I.E.L.D. is no longer an agency anymore. So I don't know what's going on, but we'll see what happens with season 4. And sadly, I'll be watching it. And I don't like that. I don't want to have a pity watch, because it's not right. There are some moments, like in season 2, in which May, who was referred to as the Calvary, we get her backstory, and it was a fantastic episode, and very understandable why she hates that name. But man, there's no character development for anyone else, and it's terrible. We're just going on a story, and I really don't care that Fitz and Simmons are getting together. It's just, there's nothing there for me. And again, Civil War is over. There's no Inhumans, so I'm stuck. But we move on. Alright, so what do we have next that's on the agenda? Well, I'll tell you. Really? So we have Legends of Tomorrow, Season 1 that had just finished. Now, this was really kind of like a weird little Justice League on a small screen. It was a weird mix of people and heroes, and villains and heroes, but it was fine. I actually started to like how things were progressing, to the point people were being killed off. I mean, Hawkman was killed off in like episode 3 or 4, and was gone for a while, and didn't come back until maybe 2 or 3 episodes towards the climax. So that's kind of cool. They do a hell of a lot of time traveling. The one thing that I wasn't crazy about, we do get to see Jonah Hex. Now, I've seen the movie, and it's abysmal. It doesn't work for me. It's terrible. So I was hoping for some kind of redemption, that we were going to have Jonah Hex in this cool storyline. There is some back history with Rip Hunter and Jonah Hex, but honestly, it did nothing for me to see him there. And I was just like, that's just a wasted effort. So, but moving on from that point on, one of the cool things that I liked, they jumped into 2046, which is an alternate timeline in which Star City had fallen, and we get an Arrow, who is one arm less, and we get the goatee. So Stephen Amell gets to play the traditional Oliver Queen that is just like in the comics, and he has one arm less, and I loved it. It was so damn cool, and I really enjoyed those kind of alternate timeline storylines. But like everything else, they go back to fix it. Yeah, of course, it's fixed. The other moment I liked is between Snart and Mick for Heatwave and Captain Cold. They're very enjoyable together, and I have a great admiration for them just being in a scene and just telling it like it is to everybody else. But what came down to was the sense of betrayal, because Mick, in that alternate timeline, wanted to stay. And I'm like, Snart was like, we're not having this. We're going, and if you're not, I'm going to do something about it. So the two of them go at it in a fight. And honestly, I think that they were going to wipe each other out, but it ultimately came down to is that because Mick betrayed the group, Snart was going to take care of him. Really take care of him. Like Carol telling, I forgot the little girl's name, to look at the flowers and shoot him in the back of the head. So it came almost down to that mice and men moment, and for the most part, something did happen, but it was left unsaid until episodes later, in which Mick comes back as one of the soldiers that the Time Masters had reprogrammed to be the Time Hunter. I think that's what they called him. So Mick becomes that, and that's another layer that, you know, in addition to Vandal Savage, you have like a whole team dynamic fighting against itself. So that's really cool. So it goes on, and again, as it progressed, I got really happy with the fact that towards the end, the Time Masters sided with Vandal Savage, because, as they surmise, is that because of his consolidating of all the powers, and him being the absolute ruler, was that when it came down to the Thanagarian War, that had to have happened to protect Earth, because otherwise the Thanagarians will come down, wipe us all out. So that was a whole little nod to what will happen in the future as a possible threat down the road. But what I loved about this was Savage was trying to come up with his own plan, in which, because certain meteorites hit at different points in time, if he was able to tell himself at a certain point to do something with that meteorite, he was going to gain this kind of reset ability of the timeline and have this ultimate power. So basically the team broke up in 3, and they're able to do this whole all good things moment where there's 3 different timelines all going on at the same time, but they managed to kill Savage, and that was just like, wow, that actually happened. They got to kill the bad guy, and it was pretty exciting. The big moment that I was waiting for, because they have mentioned in the news that at the climax we're going to get some type of beloved superhero, or from the DC universe, that is going to make an appearance. So I kept always thinking it has to be, for the most part, it has to be Booster Gold, because Rip Hunter is the son of Rip Hunter is the son of Booster Gold. So it makes sense that if he comes from the future to the present, or where they are, that should be an interesting storyline telling of those two characters. But it turned out to be some guy named Rex Tyler telling the group, don't go into the Wave Rider because it's going to explode. It's like, who the hell told you? And Mick was the one who said that, and Rex Tyler says, you're the one that told me to go back at this exact moment to tell you guys not to get on that. So, okay, I didn't know who the hell Rex Tyler was. So I had to look it up, and basically he's our man. So our man basically has the ability and the strength of everything that Superman could do, but only for 1 hour. So it's kind of like me times 10 for 10 hours. I can do everything for 10 hours, but then I become a normal man in hour 11. That's not true. It's only 10 minutes. Alright. Enough of my boasting. I think I'm going to be happy with season 2 coming out. Constantine is supposed to make an appearance, or at least be part of the group. And I'll talk about another guest that is supposed to be, hopefully fingers crossed, in addition to all these changes, another one that's going to be making an appearance. So, let's move on to Arrow. Season 3. So the question that has to be asked, is Season 3 better than Season 2? I'm sorry, we're on Season 4. Was it Season 4 better than Season 3? And the answer is yes, it is, but barely. Half of the season of Season 3 was great. The last half was just meandering a bit. Well, we have Damien Dark, and who was the bad guy, who was very likable as a bad guy. But the problem lied, and again, I talked about the stupid island thing. When we finally get to the climax or of the season, in which the two of them, we finally get to the climax between the showdown between Damien and Oliver. And as we know, Oliver had changed his ways since Season 1 to Season 2 to not kill people, because he made that promise to his friend Tommy. But was this going to happen in Season 4? Would he revert back to his old ways? Will he kill Damien Dark? And the answer is yes. If need be, he will kill to put things to an end. So the island is basically this whole lead up to that answer. Will he do it? Will he kill? And honestly, it answered within like less than 5 minutes in the last episode, in which that was the big connection between the island and what was happening in Season 4. And come on, that's the only thing that we have to take away from it? I'm done, again, with the island. It wasn't something that I really wanted to see again, but I was hoping for some good things, and we did. We got Constantine in, I think, episode 4, being in an episode with him, and then later on joining him into the into that same episode later on. So, and we get Vixen, who came on later on, but not from the island, but again, separate. Come on, that's awesome. Vixen was great, and I'm hoping that we get a spinoff, or at least see more of her. We also get a crossover between Flash and Arrow again, but to fight Vandal Savage, which was the lead off for Legends of Tomorrow. That was fantastic. It was very enjoyable. So Arrow did a lot of cool things, a lot of great things. Curtis, who supposedly is going to be rumored as Mr. Terrific, is a male version of Felicity. So I've enjoyed Curtis every time he's on there. And we do see the T-Spheres that is, I guess, part of Mr. Terrific's armament. I don't know still about this character enough to say, oh, he's going to be great at it. Mr. Terrific is brand new to me. I know of him vaguely, but again, we'll see what happened. Diggle had a couple of great moments, namely with dealing with his brother, who was part of the group called Hive, not Hive from Hydra, but Hive was the group that I guess Damien Dark was watching over. So, but I still hate that damn mask The mask does not work for me. I was expecting to have some kind of logic, some kind of reason for him to put on the mask, and it just looks like something that I would have picked up at a dollar store because it doesn't have a back end and it's open-ended. There's no reason for him to hide his face. I don't understand that. It's not as if it gives him some kind of computer visual display to work with like Iron Man would have. It was just nothing. So I'm just saying, please get rid of that mask or do something to enhance it, just to make it seem like he needs it for a reason. The other thing that we got, the stunt work is always top notch, but there was this one shot that caught my breath in which Black Canary had jumped off the roof and was heading towards the ground, and she kept her arms up with her staff in between her hands, and then Oliver shot a line through her arms, hitting the ground, and then she was using that line as like a zip line to the ground before, and then she started her attack run. Wow. Not only was that impressive, but I also saw the video of them rehearsing that with the stunt coordinators, and that was still impressive. So, always impressed with their stunt work team. The stuff they pull off week to week, good stuff. But again, the problem that I have is just like, it all becomes all the same. Like, every time there's a big fight scene and they do this great choreography, it seems as if it's the exact same people that we've seen before over and over again, but they just changed their gear so that their faces are always covered up. So the bad guys, whether it's the League of Assassins or the people from Hive, their faces are always covered up, so you don't know who they are, but it seems like it's the exact same people just redressing the exact same things they're doing over and over again. Going back to Black Canary, she is now dead. But that seems to be, to me, not a legitimate death, because she didn't really die per se. Normally that I would see from like, oh my god, she's cardiac, going to cardiac arrest, and then boom, flatline, and she's dead. She was fine one moment, and then something happened, she's dead. Oliver's the only one in the room. I still don't believe that she's dead. Alright. So from that moment, I do want to get into The Flash, which is season 2. I think season 2 is a lot of great things have happened. We do get Jay Garrick making an appearance, or at least, again, this is all filled with spoilers. Not really Jay Garrick, but in the beginning, we are getting the sense of the Golden Age Flash because of the helmet, and we see his outfit, who lost his speed, and who later turns out to be Zoom. Really spot on. I was very happy. I was worried that I'm like, oh, you're making Jay Garrick the bad guy in this? Okay, fine, I'll go with it. But it turns out to be that Jay Garrick was the man in the Iron Mask that was, throughout the whole season, unable to speak and was captive of Zoom. The other thing that I love, we got to see Grodd in the one or two, I think just one episode, in which we do finally get to see Gorilla City at the end, which I'm like, wow, that's really damn cool. We got Mark Hamill again as the Trickster for another episode. Now in episode 13, in which it might have been the episode 2 or 3 or something, where it's Welcome to Earth 2 episode. We have Barry traveling through one Earth to the other, and he sees different images, and I swear that I saw John Wesley Shipp, who plays Barry's father, but was in the Flash costume from the 1980s. And I'm like, oh, please tell me there is a version of him on one of the other Earths of him being the Flash. So, alright, there hasn't been a reason why they brought his character back for being Barry's dad back into the mix, because he said he was ready to be part of his family again, whatever. I guess because of the whole prison thing. I get it, but it just seemed like, wow, you're really putting a lot of people in here that you don't really need because they're kind of repeating themselves over and over again. But as it turns out, that Zoom kills his dad. But because of Earth 2, we do see a lot of doppelgangers. Vibe sees his. We see Killer Frost. But we also get Jay Garrick, the real Jay Garrick, who was the one, again, imprisoned and who happens to look like Barry's dad. So, as the real Jay Garrick, we get to really see the really cool costume. And I could not have been more happier to see that moment. And rumor has it that he will also, and I'm hoping, please make this happen, that he will be in Legends of Tomorrow. So we'll get 2 DC characters added on to the Legends of Tomorrow cast. So that I would be so incredibly happy to see. Again, I'm a big DC guy, and I love the Justice Society. Jay Garrick is great, but man, what a little nod to have not only John Wesley Shipp back into the cast, and yes, he got to play Barry's dad, but he gets to play the original Flash. Took my breath away. Now, having said all that, the only thing that I'm going to really gripe about this was that Barry goes back into the past. He prevents from killing his mom, and things are going to be played out differently now in season 3. I forgot the actor's name who plays Cisco, but he talked about, we might be doing the whole Flashpoint paradox. Now, if you have Netflix, it is playing right now, in which Flash has like an alternate timeline in which his mom is alive. He loses his powers, but everything else around him is completely different. Bruce Wayne is dead, whereas Thomas Wayne is alive and becomes the Batman, and a much different Batman. So it's a great storyline. I doubt we'll get any of that come in season 3. So my question is, why are we doing this? I get that Barry's in pain, but this is like the 3rd or 4th time that Barry has gone into the past to change the current timeline. And it's like the 2nd time that Iris gets to kiss Barry. And are we going to start this all over again? That is really kind of ticking me off. So, aside from that, the question is, does the stuff that happened in this new reality affect Arrow? Does that affect Legends of Tomorrow? Because again, everything should be changing on Earth 1 because of Barry. So there has to be repercussions. There have to be something that's going on. Now, if they're all connected, because Barry does make an appearance on Supergirl for one episode, and Flash and Arrow do meet together, so all that whole universe is all Earth 1. So they better make sure that if that's what they're going to do, that that's addressed and not just forget, plausibly just written to get out of a situation. Like, a snow globe that you just want to shake at the end of each season and start all over again. Don't do that. Be smart, like you've always done so far. So I'm trusting, but enough of the time change. He should have some way of preventing himself from doing that. It's too easy to go back and fix something, but it's mucking up everything you've done up to that point all over again. Alright, so other than that, I think I'm done. Yeah, I'm done. I've done 7 TV series reviews, and I'm exhausted. So, with that, don't forget, I also have a movie pilot account in which I've written out 2 articles. The second one, this brand new one, I wrote maybe about 2 weeks ago, in which I'm talking about the Martha moment from Batman vs. Superman is similar to the Rosebud moment from Citizen Kane, and I talked about how there are very similar parallels to that. So if you're interested, I will have a link on the show notes for you to go read that. I'm hoping to do a lot more writing when it comes to my sci-fi stuff, because I've been wanting to kind of catch up on that aspect. I'm doing a lot of podcasting, I'm doing a lot of origami, I'm doing a lot of running, doing a lot of things, but running and writing is one of those that I need to kind of put back on the list. So, this was a very big show. I'm hoping that you liked it. I hope I didn't bore you. So, with that, you want to email me. I'm always open to your ideas, open to your suggestions, your comments, your critiques, whatever. Just email me. how@monsterscifishow@gmail.com. So, with that, thank you again for listening to the Monster Sci-Fi Show. Sci-fi from a certain point of view. Good night.
This has been a broadcast of the ESO Network, your station for all things geek, classic, current, and beyond. Be part of the crew at ESONetwork.com.